I did my presentation on a few locations on Mount Desert Island. It's Acadia National Park. It's located off the coast of Maine. I'm going to zoom in here on the first location. This is Jordan Pond, just so you can see aerial shot of it and the mountains surrounding it and the types of vegetation. And where we're going to be walking around the pond is going to be around this area here. So looking at this first map, this is a vegetation map that was generated by the USGS and the National Park Service. It gives a breakdown of the major types of vegetation that we're going to see around Jordan Pond. This darker green color is going to be upland forest. It's conifers. It's going to be dominated by spruce trees. This lighter green color here is going to be an upland mixed forest. It has those spruce trees in there, but going to be mixed with white birch and oak trees. And then down here we have this wetland system. It's going to be a dwarf shrub bog. And then we're going to see lots of like sphagnum moss there. And then this map is nice because it's a nice topographic map. You can see just how steep the mountains are that surround Jordan Pond and how the water is going to move into this system. Jordan Pond is an oligotrophic tarn. So oligotrophic is going to be the biogeographic side of things. It's going to be very low nutrient water, hardly any vegetation or algae. And then the tarn is going to be a description of the glacial geomorphology of this area. It sits in a cirque. A cirque is going to be like a bowl-like structure that was carved up by the glaciers, and then is later then filled in by that glacier meltwater, but in a smaller sense. This is a smaller water body. So around 18,000 years ago, the Wisconsin ice sheet came through here and then carved away these very distinctive like U-shaped valleys and this cirque that formed Jordan Pond. You can see the evidence of like the glacial till up here, the different types. There's boulders, cobbles, and this gravel-like mixture in here. This picture you can see the very distinctive breaks between the plant geomorphology, the rocky shoreline where it meets the forest right behind, and then you can see the very sparsely vegetation in there. This picture looks right into the water. You can see just how clear the water is, and that glacial till again, the sparse vegetation, these little water reeds that are in the pond. And then in this picture, you can see that when you get to the rocky shore, this layer of plant morphology here is this shrub-like mixture. Before you even get to that upland mixed forest behind it, it's just harder to see in some of the other pictures, and you can see again that big mixture of glacial till that was deposited here. And there are very large boulders that were moved around by these ice sheets and left here as well. This is going to be that dwarf shrub bog I was talking about. You can see the distinct difference between the plant morphology here. This sphagnum moss that meets the forest right behind it, and then this is a water system that is the fluvial geomorphology of this was shaped by the glacial geomorphology because the way the water got here is the carved systems that were carved away by the glaciers. So the water melts and it runs down here in this lower land area that is kind of dammed by the glacial till that's behind here, keeps everything in here and wet. And then it's acidic and a bog-like system because all this excessive amounts of plant material that comes into here and is decaying. And then this I like a lot because you can see this distinct break between the upland mixed forest and the upland conifer forest dominated by the spruces behind here by the change in the color of the trees. The spruces aren't going to change. They're going to stay green all year long. Okay, then moving on to our second location, it's going to be Sand Beach and Beehive Lagoon. Just working our way to the coast, showing you how these water systems work their way from the inner part of the island and more towards the coast. This is a nice aerial shot of Beehive Lagoon and Sand Beach. This was all carved away by a glacier that came through here as well. And you can see the distinct carved out section in between these high rocky sides over here. So in this picture you can see definitely Beehive Lagoon here, but definitely a nice separation of that plant geomorphology again, and a break between the vegetation. You'll see this dune-like structure here with these grasses where it meets this shallow wetland marsh that surrounds here, and then that meets the open water marsh where you'll see that there's almost no vegetation, and then we get down here into the mud flats where it's a high amount of deposited the smaller sediments that are able to be transported by this water system into this tidal creek at the end of the water system here. Again, you can see the way that this water system moves and meanders and changes due to the sand behind it, but also the sediments that's being brought through the water system. Again, you can see that difference in the plant morphology here. The change of the colors are very distinctive, where these wetland structures are going to meet the forest behind it. And I like this picture too because this is that little tidal creek I was talking about, in the mud where it meets this mud flats here. It's very rocky. So you'll see that this system, when it has enough energy, is going to be able to transport these little cobbles and rocks and sometimes even boulders to the end of this water system if it has enough energy to do so. And then this, looking into the open water marsh, you can see the vegetation that can be in here, but again, the distinct separation between the plant geomorphology and these different structures within this habitat here. Again, you can see all the separation of the different stuff and the way that this fluvial system is changing. And I can just zoom in here. So we can see the area. And I like this because you can see the change over time. It starts in 1991, which is quite old. But you can see as we move on, the dramatic changes in the system, how it swells, and different formations within this fluvial system form, like sandbars. But you can also see the glacial meltways here that feed into this water system and how they move out and meander and meet the ocean. And this is dried up, you can see in the sand picture here, and how it swells, and again, just the changes, and you can see the change in the plant geomorphology here too as well. And I just want to say it's evident that glacial geomorphology has a direct effect on fluvial geomorphology, and in combination they both affect landforms of Mount Desert Island's landscape, and in turn these geomorphic systems shape and dictate the constructs of different biogeographic systems within these distinctive landscapes.